You want to gavel us in? All right, everybody. I think we're ready to get started here. We're going to start with our budget. We have our budget conference. I'm going to just do another gavel there, Mr. Chairman. There it is. So, David, welcome.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so there's a lot of paper on your desk, so I'm going to try to tell you what to look at. You have a one-pager that says Senate House differences, Senate Bill 360. That's where we're going to start. So these are the hold items from before. The first hold item was West North Avenue. The House cut $2.5 million. The Senate cut nothing. The second item is the Consortium for Coordinated Community Supports. The House had cut $100 million. The Senate had cut nothing.
So, right. So we're going to do a $70 million cut on this.
And I think you would also want to look, there's a white packet on your page, stapled packet. The first page of that packet relates to this. And what it says is that 12 million of the money that remains, but no more than 12 million of that of the remaining consortium money can be used as the administration had proposed for the Medicaid program to reimburse for school-based behavioral health. And there's a BRFA provision we'll get to a little later on also related to that.
And this is just a 1 year.
For 1 year, fiscal 25 only.
Great.
Okay, the next item that was on hold related to the preservation of cultural arts. And if you look at page 2 of that white packet, we have the final decisions on what, you didn't have as much money as we had thought. So this spends the 600,000 that's actually available.
Yep.
Okay. All right, the rest of, I think we're going to stay in the white packet now for a couple of minutes. This various language that you haven't seen. Page 3 in the Department of Transportation expresses your intent of what you want the transportation revenues that you'll talk about in the BRFA to support. That includes highway user, local operated transit systems, and then various state projects.
Right. I just want to point out one thing on this number 8. That given the fact that obviously we've seen this tragedy and given the fact with the Key Bridge and given the fact that it's rerouting traffic, we want to certainly send the message to the department that we want some of this money to be used for the purposes of ensuring that folks who have to work overtime in the evening, whatever is necessary to improve the traffic flow, given the restrictions of losing the bridge, that we should be using some of these resources that we've come up with to ensure that that moves as smoothly as possible.
Oh, I think we're good.
Good. Okay, on page 4, this is language that you had actually agreed to, both House and Senate, but you're removing, I believe, because I think the policy committees are going to pass bills related to this.
Correct. The policy committees, both sides passed this bill, I think, already.
All right, page 5 is some new language in the State Department of Education asking for a report on a new financial reporting system to help oversee the blueprint and so forth.
From you guys. So yep, we're good.
Yep.
Okay. Page 6 relates to the Aid to Non-Public Schools program and is just clarifying. This has been some confusion, I guess, with the State Department of Education about calculating the net tuition and what schools are in and out of the program. And this clarifies that.
It's fine.
Thank you.
Page 7 makes a cut of 7 million, a little over $7 million that is contingent on the BRFA. It's reducing education funding because you're delaying the tier 2 full day pre-K children. You're not going to do them and not include them in the program in fiscal 25. So it saves you about $7 million.
Great.
All right. Page 8 and page 9. I think you previously had approved some Department of Environment language. This is revised Department of Environment language. We understand is more acceptable to all parties.
Yes.
Okay.
Page 10. So you all had agreed to set aside $199 million in the rainy day fund to be used if necessary by the administration to close gaps in the foster care and Medicaid programs because we had estimated shortfalls. We've just changed it to give them a little more flexibility to use more of the money in fiscal 24 as they're concerned that more of the deficit will be in 24.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. Page 11 is new language related to the legislation related to the Key Bridge and the port. In order to do what the legislation that is at least moved through the Senate would do, you also need to authorize the use of the rainy day fund in the budget bill. So this authorizes up to 275 million to be used from the rainy day fund to help support the programs in the bill, and it's contingent on the legislation. If you use the 275, which we amend the maximum, doesn't mean that will be what's used, and the 199 for entitlements, you would still have 7.5% in the rainy day fund going forward.
Okay.
All right, before I do page 12, I want to turn you to, there's a single page, looks like this, it says conference ads on it. So there's a number of adjustments to ads. You can see them all laid out there. The very first one, the preservation of cultural arts in fiscal 24, you actually approved it in an earlier meeting and just had it here because it's one of your conference ads. You can see all the general fund impacts. One thing I would note, one thing that you're doing near the bottom of that general fund impact is you're removing 2 million of a previous ad for the controller because supplemental budget number 2 funded the that item. And then the bottom of the chart is a couple of special fund ads. The first one, the retiree drug subsidy, was previously approved. But we are shifting it to special funds, and you're going to be authorizing in the BRFA the use of the senior prescription drug fund balance to support that.
So give everyone just a chance to review the lists here for a second. But I think these ads are okay, but we'll just pause for 1 second, David. We have a question up here.
Yep.
Sorry, David. So what's happening up here is that we had a last minute request from AIB for some technical assistance money. I think there's 1.5 currently budgeted somewhere. She wanted another 1.5 million. Given the late hour and the fact that these are special funds, so she could, we believe, process a budget amendment to do that if she needed to at a later date. We're just going to put on the record that we would not oppose a budget amendment if we saw that down the line, but we're not going to take action here. But I think these ads are good. Is that right, Mr. Chairman?
That's correct.
Okay, and that included, those ads included what was on page 12 of that packet. So you're done with the ad, those ads. The last thing on the operating budget I would call your attention to is, I'm told these are lilac pages. We can debate the color. There's a number of things that we're changing the wording of some of the ads that were done in the House and Senate. I wasn't planning to go through these. We've been given all of these by the committees, but it is just for the record that there were lots of little minor tweaks to language. So I think that concludes everything we are aware of in the operating budget. If you are good, Tanya has the signature page for all the conferees that we want to make sure
Okay.
you all sign before you leave today.
Good. Why don't we have the conferees that are here sign the signature page, and that'll give staff a minute or two to hand out the BRFA items, and then we can switch out the BRFA conferees as well. So does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
It's a little money.
Yeah, it's whatever. Yeah.
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 I don't know how.
Yes.
I was looking at it.
We're just having some broadcasting issues, so we're waiting for the technical issues to get worked out. So we'll get going as soon as those are worked out. getting the word that our broadcasting issues have been fixed, so. You want to gavel us back in, Mr. Chair? All right, so we're back here for the BURPA, and I think we're broadcasting, so we should be good to go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we should want to start with the conference revenue increases sheet on your desk. Lots of numbers. All right, so this is what we understand to be the agreement. It essentially is three categories. It increases revenues for the Blueprint Fund. There are various increases on cigarette and other tobacco products, as well as some vaping. It then has a transportation revenue component that generates about 252 million in fiscal 25, growing to about 335 million by fiscal 29. And then the last chunk, if you will, is the trauma revenues, which, as true already in the BURFA, generated about $105 million. And you can see that gets split between the Trauma Physician Services Fund, which gets about 18 million, the shock trauma, which gets about 41 million dedicated to it, and MEMSOF, which gets about 46 million, which resolves the longstanding problem with MEMSOF being underfunded.
The only tweak we have, I think, is line 4 under transportation revenues. The zero emission should be 125 and the plug-in electric should be 100. Otherwise, I think we can review this for a second, but I think we're, Mr. Chairman.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Tanya to walk you through the amendment table. You're good.
Okay, so you have like a 2-page packet front and back that says Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act. So starting with item number 2, this is the Office of Attorney General. As introduced, it eliminated the mandate for the Consumer Protection Division and authorized special funds to be used to support the division. The Senate adopted a modification to allow this for only fiscal 2025. The House rejected the Senate action and adopted the provision as introduced.
I think we're going to do it in perpetuity, but half, right?
That's correct.
Item number 4 alters the allowable uses of the Blueprint Fund for the coordinated community supports. The Senate rejected the provision. The House adopted the provision as introduced. Based on the action you took in the budget, you would want to do this for fiscal 2025.
1 year only, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Item 23, it would have advanced the reduction in highway user revenue distribution from fiscal 2028 to 2026. The Senate adopted and the House struck the provision.
Highway user.
What's good?
Highway, yep. So I think we're taking the House provision here, but I don't think it's quite fair to say that we're taking the House provision, because I know for a fact through these negotiations, and our Senate colleagues are just as interested and have made just as much a priority as the House have of restoring these highway users that are so critical, I think, to our local municipalities, our counties, in repairing the roads and building roads. And so I think we can call this a House and Senate action, in fairness.
Couldn't say it better. Obviously, it's important to a lot of jurisdictions, and the members have been very clear in the committee, and this is important for our state as a whole. So good move.
Item 24 was a provision that eliminates the requirement for registration stickers on license plate. The Senate rejected. The House adopted the provision as introduced.
We did subsequently hear from law enforcement that some are not using the readers, and so we still would need these stickers. So Senate action.
Item 400 APP additional was the actions related to the work zone safety, which I understand through the compromise will be done through another bill. So you would want to reject.
So, I mean, we can do it. We can put the bill into this if that's appropriate. Not necessarily. You don't want to do that? Absolutely.
Let's just
no.
clean this.
If we can do that. That's fine.
We know the bill's going to pass.
Yeah, the Senate bill essentially is the model for this at this point, and that's what we're going to go with. I just wanted to offer the opportunity if we wanted to have it in this bill also, but either way, I think we're fine. Sounds like.
Okay, to just pass it through your committee, Mr. Chair? Okay, we're just gonna reject it here, but the standing committees on either side will pass it.
On page 2. This is the vehicle surcharge for the trauma fund. You would be modifying it because the distribution is a little bit different.
One is right.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see it on the other sheet, what the distribution is. There's some other component parts in it. There was a change to allow for a little more money to be in MEMSOF to go to the Amos Fund. We're allowing on the physician fund a broader reach of medical professionals to be able to tap into that. So there are a number of things. Let me just say, I'm grateful to a lot of people on this. This is a really big deal. And whether folks out there know it or not yet in the world, and maybe hopefully they never will know it because they'll never need the services. But this is a big deal, and we are making a move here that will last hopefully for decades in terms of the funding to ensure that these services, that this system, the best in the world, I believe, will continue to move forward and to have the resources to really save lives every single day across the state. It's something that I think we should all be very proud of. I want to thank the chairman. I want to thank the delegate, Shetty, who was so involved in all of this. Senator Elfreth. There were a number of people who played roles in all this, but it's a major achievement for the future. This is a cost that is part of the registration fee. And when you look at the registration fee, and we also added registration dollars also for the Transportation Trust Fund, but a major component of the registration fee that folks will get every 2 years will be about trauma. And when they pay that and when they register their cars, I would like everyone to know that you're doing that for yourselves, your families, and everybody else's families across the state who will need this. Hopefully never, but maybe at some time. So I'm just very proud of it all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, again, as you said earlier, I couldn't say it better myself, other than that I want to just echo your sort of thanks to Chair Shetty, who worked all summer with you and others on this important piece of legislation and getting this right. And I know you've been working through the conference together as well. And so I think we've gotten a really great place on how the money is divvied out to make sure our trauma system is fully funded moving forward. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate Shetty.
The bottom of that page, 402, is the combined reporting provision that was adopted.
Senate.
Yes.
On the top of the next page is the transportation network impact fee. I think there would, if you would want to adopt this, I think there is an interest in moving the effective date to July 1.
Yep, I think we talked about that this morning.
Yes. But the House position, but fundamentally, yes. Right.
The next item is the increasing the vehicle excise tax and eliminating the trade-in allowance.
We're gonna be rejecting that.
Correct.
The next item is the vehicle registration fee increase, and I think the idea here is that it will be phased in over 3 years.
Correct, and I think we have a sort of phase in weight class, and we are adopting, I think, the weight class, Mr. Chairman, which is a new sort of, and you know, I think we have to give a shout out to Chair Corman and his committee and Delegate Lewis, who came up with a really, I think, creative idea here to make sure that higher weight class vehicles, they're causing more wear and tear on our road, are paying sort of a greater share of that. And I think that's really smart provision that I bet the Senate is adopting.
Yep, great. Ended up being a great idea.
The next item is the electric vehicle surcharge. So based on the page you did earlier, that would be 125 for plug-in electric, or for zero emission and 100 for plug-in electric. So that would be modified.
Yes, that's correct.
The next item was related to increasing fines for individuals convicted of impaired driving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll adopt that.
And the next item relates to the train commission. The House had adopted a provision that repealed the train commission on pages 3 through 5 of the green package. This repeals the original act for the train commission and reestablishes it with some altered membership and advisory groups.
Yeah, I think this was a great sort of coming together to make sure that we're not only continuing train, to make sure that we are going to address sort of more major projects moving forward over the next year and look at solutions for that, but doing it in a more concerted way and making sure that the group really continues to do the good work it's been doing.
Agree with the chair. It's we're gonna put our brain power together, a lot of smart people in this group, and we're gonna keep moving forward. You know, it's sad that in some ways it takes maybe takes a tragedy to see how important any one component of our transportation system can be, and how the ramifications of that run all through our system and the way people move around the state. And so this is important stuff. Moving people and commerce is critical to keep the state moving forward in lots of ways. And so I appreciate that we'll keep working together to make all that happen.
Great.
On the back page, page 4, this was a provision that expressed the intent about how the transportation revenues that were raised through the BRPA would be used. The intent language would now be on the budget itself, but there would be a provision you might be interested in that would prohibit the funds that are being raised from going into the highway user revenue.
I think we discussed that. Yeah. GMDAR, yeah, that's right.
Sorry.
Right, okay, thank you. We did, were we done with the tally sheeting? We
Yeah.
did have one other thing I think we wanted to add that we had talked about on the study, the blueprint study on funding goals and reaching its goals. I know that there had been study language provided and amended in Senate Bill 1102, but I think we discussed actually putting it in the BRPA here to highlight it. That is approximately the 5-year mark of the blueprint. And I think both the Senate and the House are showing today commitment through the leadership of Chair Atterbury to the blueprint, but also responsibility to the voters of Maryland that we are spending record sums of money on the blueprint. And at the 5-year mark is probably a good time to come back and take a look and see if it's being enacted efficiently, with fidelity and meeting the goals that we all intended. And so I think we'd like to put it here in the BRPA to just highlight that. So I think you may have the language. If not, we'll make sure that it ends up.
Okay.
Yeah, accountability, I think, has always been key from the very beginning. We've always held true to that in our previous actions, even back when we first passed the bill. We've got to make sure that it works. As the chairman said, we're investing a lot of taxpayer dollars, and to ensure that that is spent wisely and we're getting the kind of results that we really want for it. There's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be doing that we shouldn't be thinking responsibly along the way. And we're looking forward to seeing great results, and we're going to be testing them.
And, we're pleased to be joined by the standing committee chair that deals with education issues, has made the blueprint such a priority. So I know we're doing a lot of good things here today for the Blueprint, Madam Chair, mostly under your guidance, insistence, and leadership. So
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very pleased at our recommitment here today to the Blueprint. As I've stated many times, I think our most precious citizens here in the state of Maryland are our children, and our commitment to them and to our teachers is what we can do that will alleviate so many other issues, whether it's juvenile justice, whether it's our workforce. Our commitment to this is going to uplift families. It's going to take folks out of generations of poverty, and it's going to just uplift our state. So I'm just very pleased. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for your unwavering support of the Blueprint. I really appreciate it.
And just on our side in particular, I know that our education subcommittee chair would have liked to said something. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here this afternoon, but Senator King has been working on this for years and served on the Blueprint Commission, actually.
I think one of the things that we've been most proud of as a House and Senate, as we've worked to the conference committee, is that just reflecting and illustrating our shared values, our values to transportation and education in this instance, that we really are lockstep on sort of keeping these commitments, but also making sure that we have a tangible indicia to show voters that, it's working. So I think that's a large part of what we're doing.
Absolutely. Do we have not any more items?
We have a couple more.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
We have a couple. So there are a couple items that we don't have paper on. One you discussed a little bit earlier related to a contingent reduction. It would delay the inclusion of the tier 2 students it would go to 360% in 2026 and then up to 600% in fiscal 2027.
Yes.
And there would be another provision that would increase the per pupil full day pre-kindergarten amounts in fiscal 2027 and 2028 to $19,950.
And this is. Atterbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that what you just mentioned is critical. It's critical under the Blueprint for our private providers to be able to partner with our locals and actually get our 3 and 4-year-olds in universal pre-K. And this is going to be huge. It's going to be huge in helping our private providers to actually be able to do that. So I just want to thank you, Mr. Chair, and everyone involved, because this is just really critical in getting private providers and our locals on board with what we said under the Blueprint, with actually doing universal pre-K and not submitting waivers every year, but let's actually do it. So thank you.
Yeah, and it's working in tandem and in conjunction with the bill that you've prioritized and passed out of the House that's in the Senate that I think is going to be moving in the next few days, that matches the money with the policy. So we couldn't be happier.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one example. The other example has to do with the money set aside for behavioral health in the Blueprint that we've also moved slightly this year. Getting it right, getting the timing right, knowing when we have the infrastructure together for all component parts of the Blueprint are critical. We're going to keep working on that. That's part of the accountability in all of this, and look forward to keep working on that. But we've done a couple things as we just talked about for the Blueprint in that regard, and we're going to keep looking in that direction.
Thank you.
Okay, on the first page of the green pages, supplemental budget number 2 included items that would contingently reduce some general funds and provide special fund appropriations in fiscal 24 and 25 based on the idea that there would be some expansion of the allowable uses of the Police Training and Standards Commission Fund. And this page here would authorize that for fiscal 24 and 25 only to implement the supplemental budget.
Yep.
Okay.
Page 2. would expand the allowable uses of the Senior Prescription Drug Assistance Program Fund for fiscal 2025 only, to be used for the health reimbursement accounts for the state employee retirees. So this would implement the addition that you made in the budget.
Yeah, no, this is great. I mean, this is really important. I mean, we've heard about this issue of Medicare Part D with our employees. This is going to be adding an additional $250 for individuals. We've had a lot of discussion about it. We've brought members of the committee together and work grouped and thought about how we could improve the situation. And this is our effort to do that.
I think that's 250 on top of what's already been meted out and worked on by the administration, and
That's
thank
correct.
their work on this. I see. We'll make sure we thank Secretary Grady at the end, but particularly on this issue and the work that you all have done to make sure that seniors are able to absorb any extra, if any, cost on this. Good.
Mr. Chairman, I think that concludes everything that we understand that you need to do today.
Great. Well, Mr. Chairman, the legislative process is designed to foster debate, but hopefully, I said yesterday, eventually compromise, and I think that's what we've come to today. I think it's a great compromise. I've said all session long, and I think this compromise illustrates the fact that, people have asked, how are you all going to come together on this in the end? How is this going to be possible? You seem at odds. And I've said, and I think you'll agree, it's because we share values. Right? We have the same values. We have the same goals in the end. And in this instance, making sure we have a robust transportation system that gets people to work safely and fast and get them home to see their families, and also providing world-class public education for their children. And so I'm really proud of our work product, proud of you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for being such a great partner in this.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. Even though sometimes it might seem like that in the press, it's certainly always a pleasure to work with you. Look, there is a lot to be proud of in this package, and at the end of the day, I honestly believe that a lot of lives are going to be better off for the resources and where we put them. I don't know that there's much more to say. I do, as you said, we want to thank the administration, Secretary Grady and her team. They've been great partners also. We obviously want to thank all of our committee members and all of our staff from, I'm sure, both
Department of Legislative Services, David, your team.
Yep.
Up late nights, working around the clock. Thank you so much for the work you all do. We literally could not do this work without you all.
Yeah.
And the Appropriations Committee and all of our staff and Committee Council and Appropriations Committee to get this job done.
It takes a lot of folks to put this together. There's a lot of moving parts, as I think some of you have seen over this period. But again, at the end of the day, budgets are about what we care about. Absolutely. As you say, our values. And I think this really reflects the fact that we really do value our children's education and our transportation system and a whole lot of other things in this budget. Remember, we talk about certain components about it, but this is a $63 billion budget. There's a lot going on here. Absolutely. There's a lot of stuff that went on that didn't reach the level of having to work out a difference on. There's things in the environment, and all kinds of healthcare issues. There are so many parts where government is doing its best it can. It can't solve every problem, but it is doing the best it can to make a difference where it can and where it should to improve people's lives. And it's great to be partners with all of you.
Absolutely. Should we sign the paperwork?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, David. All right.